I don't think I've ever voiced this out loud.
Oh no.
Sorry, Mum.
Hey, welcome to season 2 of Travel Like You. This time coming to you from the comfort of my couch. That's right, I've packed up the studio and brought it and a ton of great travel stories home with me. On today's episode, I introduce you to Emma, a lovely lady who left her home in the UK for 1 year in Bordeaux. We talk about some pretty embarrassing mix-ups we've made speaking French, somehow always wildly inappropriate, confrontations with a Cuban idol, love letters to the Philippines, and a whole lot more. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Can you introduce yourself, Emma?
Of course. Well, you know my name already. I am living in Bordeaux at the moment. Me and Sarah have been friends for the last 2 years, I think.
Do we know each other that long?
I think it could be
about
2 years.
When we met, I wasn't working at the university yet.
Blimey.
So, yeah, actually, it'll be around now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
That feels
cool.
fitting.
That's cool. Yeah, okay. So we've known each other for about 2 years.
Yeah.
And what are you doing? How'd you get here?
So I'm living in Bordeaux at the moment and have done actually since, I remember the date very clearly in my mind, October 2020, because it was 3 weeks before the second lockdown. And I've lived in Bordeaux ever since. So I'm an English teacher. So I work with university students and sort of teach them English for specialized purposes. So that's just teaching students language for their field. So today it was dentistry, tomorrow it's psychology, sometimes it's medicine. We wear many hats.
Yeah. But we were just talking about that too, that you don't have any background in those fields.
Oh God, no, not at all. I studied English language and theatre when I was at uni. So it's nice because I was always interested in the sciences. I hated having to reduce the amount of subjects I did. I always liked being a jack of all trades, master of none. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when I got to 16 and they started saying, oh, you have to go down to 5 subjects, I was probably one of a very few amount of people in the class who was like, no, I want to do science.
I want to do all of it.
I love the arts as well, but it's a way to keep my toe in it and stay, involved.
That's interesting because 16 seems so young to decide like what you want to do with the rest of your life.
It is ridiculous.
So, so where did you study? Where are you from?
So home for me is near Manchester.
Okay.
Back in the UK. But I studied in Birmingham.
Okay.
Which was, they were just such wonderful days. I loved living in Birmingham. I studied there. I graduated from Birmingham in 2017. And then I lived there for 2.5 years after that, working in the art sector. And it's a really precious time. Mm-hmm. I would recommend Birmingham to everyone.
I feel like you don't hear enough about it. I've also met someone from, I would say Birmingham, but that's like Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Birmingham. I've been sort of mimicking a British accent for the last 30 minutes before we started, and now I'm shy.
I love it.
No, definitely want to explore more of the UK. I've been to London and Oxford and Edinburgh and a little bit all over the Republic of Ireland, but never Birmingham.
Yeah. I mean, is it the most beautiful UNESCO World Heritage site in the world? No, it's not. But it is full of creativity. They're the kindest, coolest people that live there. And I met someone actually not too long ago, a French person who had done his year abroad at my university in Birmingham. And he put it quite well. He said it's maybe not the most entry-level city to visit as a tourist, but to live, you will never find anywhere more perfect for a student, especially.
Aww.
And to hear, someone who is from Bordeaux say that, I was like, You get it. So
Nice.
you've lived it. You know it.
That's great. But what brought you to Bordeaux? Did you come for the job?
I know. I came originally for a volunteering position. So in 2019, I knew I was ready for a bit of a shift. I really wanted to move to France.
Okay.
But I also wanted to do something outside of the sector I had been working in. And my interests were sort of realigning, and I knew that I wanted to do some volunteering. And I found this incredible program. It's for Europeans, which is called the European Solidarity Corps. And of course, back in 2019, Britain had not quite left the European Union yet.
Brexit.
Exactly. So I saw that window and managed to sneak onto a brilliant 9-month program working with an educational charity that happened to be in Bordeaux, which was great. It was all about sort of working with schools to talk about sustainable development goals, about interculturality, and working in multicultural environment, which might seem quite obvious if you've got a background or you have a context that means you are used to interacting with people of all different backgrounds and beliefs and contexts. But when we would work sort of with maybe more remote areas or remoter schools, they were skills that the kids had to sort of be taught, and it was really satisfying. It's something very close to my heart, so I really enjoyed getting to do that. And it was the ticket to being able to move to France, and at that time it was only meant to be 9 months. And then me knowing that I loved English language, I had already sort of trained to become a teacher. The natural next step was to be able to stay and to find a post, and the stars just aligned. And this wonderful lectrice position, the post that you have, but just at a different university, it happened to appear, and it was 3 minutes from my home, and
Amazing.
it was highly convenient and one of the loveliest jobs I've ever had.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, I've been working at the University of Bordeaux, and that takes us to today, I guess.
Nice. Aww.
But if I was to really pause and look back at it, there is a commonality, there's a thread, which is trying to, as cheesy as it sounds, trying to make people understand each other. And at first that was through the arts, through theatre, and then it morphed to kind of languages. But I think that is still very important, and I feel like in my job I'm able to, in a small way, do that.
That's why we get along. I think I made the same connection between journalism and teaching English, like communication at the end of the day. Oh, so sentimental. I love No, but like that's probably why we use it. Yeah, like I said, that's why we get along.
Definitely.
So before we move on to your travel stories, what we do on this podcast, right, is our no context story to start. So what do you got?
So, one time I went on holiday with my family, and we thought that my dad almost got rabies from Che Guevara.
What?
The end.
The end. True story. Okay. Wow, I have Sorry, I don't even know what to do with that. That's a new one for me. Okay, all right. You know what? No questions.
Yeah,
No
I'll let that sit. I'll let you ponder on that one.
Yeah, we'll see what you got at the end for us if you choose to give us the story from Che Guevara. All right. I'm gonna keep that one. I'm gonna keep that one locked in while you give me your other.
There is context to it.
I'm sure. Okay.
I'm not gonna say it now.
All right. But we'll find out. Alrighty. So you talk about language learning. Did you know French already before coming to France?
I had a GCSE level of French, I would say, before coming here.
What does that mean?
GCSEs are the exams that you take at 16 in the UK. Okay. And it's the last time you essentially do a bit of everything. And then as of 16, if you continue into education, you would then specialize down to 5, maybe 4 subjects, which, as we said earlier, ridiculously early. When you have you're a child at that point. How do you know what you want to do?
Yeah.
Anyway, at 16, you take these big GCSE exams. And that was the last time that I studied French.
Oh my goodness.
So it was a complete leap of faith, potential delusion.
Yeah.
But having seen, people around me go and make that move and land on their feet, and more than that, they hit the ground running and fly and learn from being immersed, I think it emboldened me to go and have a go.
Wow.
But no, to answer your question, my French was mostly mime, I would say.
I'm dead.
Oh, God.
Oh, my gosh. Mostly mime. So you spoke silent French. I get it. All right. So you learned, quote unquote, on the job. You put yourself, it's like, I was going to say it's like throwing yourself in the pool when you can't swim, but like you understood what swimming was. You know what I mean?
Can't do it. Let's go.
Yeah, like,
yeah,
that's too funny.
It was really thanks to my housemates. I mean, like, when you move to Bordeaux, if you manage to find housemates that will take you under your wing, it's such an entry into a friendship, into a culture, into a language.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not have the French level I have today without the housemates that I had, who, bless their hearts, took me in with a very, very little, very small level of French.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it was, if you've done GCSEs, it's maybe A2. So you have the basics, but the idea of speaking is quite frightening. And I just remember doing my interview with my poor housemates, who they became my housemates. And I really, really, really wanted to make a good impression. Not be the girl who's not speaking French and, be like Emily in Paris and just expect everyone to speak English. I was like, no, I'm going to try. With the 5 words I have, I'm going to try.
Oh my goodness.
So they took me on a tour on Zoom around the apartment, and every time they showed me something, the only thing I could say was, oh, c'est génial. And then they'd show me another room and I'd say, oh, wow, c'est génial. Ooh, the bedroom, c'est génial.
You don't know the words. It's so hard.
Only thing I was like, maybe if I just say it in different intonations, they'll get that I have more than one emotion. But I ended the call. I'm such an idiot.
Oh, well, how did it go after that? So you were video chatting, or I was going to say FaceTime, whatever, from the UK.
Yeah.
And this phone call where you said maybe 3 words in French, they were like, yep, that's our girl. Is that what happened?
I would love that to be the case. One of them is still one of my closest friends. They're both brilliant. But yeah, I found out later that I was actually choice number 3.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
So no, I was not the fake. I'm not surprised.
That's so
it's the only thing I could say. But thankfully, the other girls who were also interviewed couldn't follow through for whatever reason. So I am so very grateful to have been their third choice. And because we went into lockdown almost immediately, we spent almost every day together. Mm-hmm. And they were incredibly patient, just struck the balance perfectly between letting me have a go, and then if I was, making the same mistake constantly, being able to go, okay, this one maybe you can fix. And they just had the patience of saints. I don't know how they did it. Thanks, Maëlle. Thanks, Camille.
Oh, yeah, share it. Let them listen. Did they speak any English at all?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, both of them were the great English speakers. I mean, one of them had been doing a master's in English already, so her vocabulary was, like my students sometimes, better than mine.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other one, also brilliant level of English. And she had some fantastic, just some cultural references that I could connect to because her stepdad was English.
Okay.
And so sometimes she'd sing the BBC Radio 2 theme tune or talk about Marmite. And I'd be like, yeah, she's my girl.
That's too funny.
They were both fantastic to live with.
Nice. Yeah. Especially if you're a foreigner, sometimes it's really hard to get your foot literally in the door. Mm-hmm. When you need an apartment. I also very similarly, very lucky to find an apartment and a coloc to like also immerse myself.
Yeah.
I forced myself to like apply to apartments that were occupied by French people and who were okay with me being a foreigner, and also like my French needed to be good enough so that like we could communicate
and still have, meaningful exchanges.
Yeah.
And
Because I mean, there are some people who want to, just live in a house share or like have roommates, and you live just completely your own lives, and that's fine. But I was also looking to make friends at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I was lucky that they chose me, because I was very surprised in the end that they chose me. But when you have people who are so welcoming and stuff, it makes it easier. And then, of course, that dynamic helps you learn the language.
Absolutely
Helps you learn the language. Shout out to my first roommates in this apartment, Jojo and Brieux. The thing was, Jojo, super patient, like understood a lot of English, like cannot thank her enough for how far my French got, like right off the bat. And also thanks to Brieux, because he spoke much faster, didn't articulate as much as Jojo did, and didn't speak as much English, or didn't understand or speak as much English as Jojo did. So I had, like, if I was in my room and it was like Brieux or Jojo, I knew I knew what I was getting myself into.
Absolutely.
Like, I was like, okay, if I'm really gonna have to challenge myself, because Brieux's in the kitchen and I need to leave my room and speak to somebody. You know what I mean? So, no, I really get it. And so over time, how would you say your French got better? Was it something that you saw immediately? Was it something that it took a minute? Or
Yeah, I think at first you were so overwhelmed by everything that I just remember being really, really tired.
Oh my
but
gosh.
Little things like being able to go to the supermarket, interact with the people in the shops, or to be able to have a conversation where you're not just itching to Google, oh God, what's this word? They're really satisfying checkpoints. At least they were for me at the beginning. And you feel in the first few months that level just soar, and it's so validating that yes, okay, being immersed in it was absolutely the right thing to do. This is elevating my level beyond anything I thought was possible. And then you feel it stagnate. I don't know if this is the same for you.
Absolutely.
In terms of speaking, I don't have French housemates anymore. I live with my partner, which is really, really fun. But he's British. He's applying to be French, so soon I will have a French boyfriend. No, we always talk in English. And I think we've both said that since living together, fun as it is, we find ourselves then back in a French-speaking context, and we're like, oh God, how do we do this?
Yeah, even if like I go home to visit family and then I come back and I'm not speaking French, and I'm like, or I wasn't speaking French, and then picking it back up is hard, but it gets easier with time. Over 3 years, when I first went back home and then came back to try to speak French here, it was a nightmare. I feel like it took like at least a month to get, and then with every time, I feel like that just gets shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
So that's nice. Like the reprise got easier over time, and so now I just went home for the holidays, came back, and barely noticed.
That is a big checkpoint.
Yeah, I was only home for 3 weeks, but still, like I barely. I was afraid. I'm always afraid of it, as if like literally my brain is going to wipe.
Yeah.
But I always get it back, and part of that is also because I'm immersed immediately, and I also have a French partner, and I have French roommates, and it's immediate when I come back.
Yeah.
But
you switch that part of your brain back on, and it's
right, and it does feel more like a light switch than it used to. Before it was like I don't know. I had to like
grinding a mill.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking too. I just didn't know how to say it. That's perfect. But it's definitely, you plateau so often with language learning, and even when you're immersed. I used to get headaches. Like that was something validating for me, was like I just stopped getting headaches from speaking.
Wow.
I would go on, back then I was going on dates, and that's, if I can say anything, I think I've said it before, is that dating in France really helped improve my French. Because I would go on dates with French people, and they wouldn't know English. And I'd force myself, and maybe I got to bank a little bit on the fact that, like, I've got a cute little accent and whatever. And I met some very patient people who were okay sitting in front of me, and I ended up talking a lot, but I would cross my fingers hoping that they would take over, you know what I mean, so that I wouldn't
please make me stop talking.
Right, but anyway.
But at the same time, it trains your ears by having just a variety of voices. Because I would say, when I was living with my 2 housemates, and then the 2 housemates after that who were equally wonderful and patient, I would say I understand those 4 voices better than most other French voices, just by the nature of being exposed to them and hearing them better. Like, I could understand their version of French, whereas put me in a room with a French person that I've never met, whose voice I don't know, they could be speaking very simple sentences, but that's when my brain is like, ooh, okay, how do we do this?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Even different accents, or just a voice you're not used to hearing, that definitely plays a role. Was there any moment, because I know I have many, where there was, like, I don't know, lost in translation kind of thing? Because
oh god, yeah, there's a fair few of them. But there's one in particular, which was about 4 months into living with my housemates, when Maëlle came home with some beautiful homemade jam from her aunt and uncle's place in Albi, which had the pleasure to visit a few months later. It's stunning. There's some vines. I can't remember what kind of jam it was now. The jam still traumatizes me in a different way, but it was beautifully made. That I remember. And I really wanted to, I was fascinated by it. At home, my family never really made jam or anything like that. And so I was trying to be interested, asking her some questions. Was it your aunt or was it your uncle who made it? And she was saying, I think it was her uncle. And she was saying that we have to eat it quite quickly, being fresh and all. And so I asked her, I'll do it in French, I guess. Et du coup, il y a des préservatifs dedans?
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
And if you speak French, you will know that préservatif is not, like in English, a preservative, because I was curious about how long we would have.
Yeah.
And so she looks at me with a look that she has only given me once or twice, in complete confusion and entertainment. And she's like, I don't think you said what you meant to say there. And at this point, I have no idea what a preservative is. It could be anything at this point. So I'm like, oh God, what is it, Maëlle? What did I say? And she was like, yeah, preservative is a condom.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Oh my
preservative?
God.
Condom. And so she was like, no, there's no condoms in the jam.
Oh my God, that's so funny. See, I've heard of this mix up. Like, this is one of the things that I kind of learned early on, was that, like, oh, it's one of those things you don't want to accidentally say.
Nope.
I've never heard of anyone actually doing it.
That's thank God it was funny. In safe hands, like with her.
And not at a restaurant or whatever, asking,
Jesus, can
are there
you imagine?
Any condoms in this jam?
Only natural condoms, please.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus. Yeah. So that was only a learning curve.
That's too funny.
You said that you had one.
Yeah, I have thought of a couple now, but one early on. Well, actually, let's just address. So, condom in French is préservatif.
Mm-hmm.
And what are preservatives?
Conservateur? No, or is that? Oh God.
Conservateur. That means like conservative.
Conservative
like,
people.
Yeah, like
it's conservative
like
something.
Republican. Okay. Because now I'm like, oh man. Anyway, I just wanted to inform anybody not to make the same mistake, but
lesson learned.
Yeah, maybe we'll look it up. You can look it up.
I'm gonna look it up.
Get back to me with that. because I'm also curious. But okay, so one of my favorites of these lost in translation moments, I got a lot of shit from my roommates after, not shit, but they were like, that's a movie, you know what I mean? So I was on a date, and I think I was on like, this was like our second or third date, and we hadn't kissed or anything. And I don't know, normally that happens by then for me. And he had come over, and I think we had like baked cookies together or something.
That is wholesome.
It was very wholesome. And so it makes sense. Every date we had was wholesome. And so this experience was also wholesome, I guess. And so I walked him down the stairs. I live on the 4th floor. I did not need to walk, no elevator. I did not need to walk this man all the way down to the door. You know what I mean? I could have just left him at my front door, but no. I hoped that something would happen.
You were playing the long game there,
I
girl.
really was. Walked him all the way down to the bottom floor at the front door. And I think he could like sense it. But finally, he kissed me, and I'm like, yes, right? And so, you know, when someone's kissing you, I guess I leaned back with it, like I absorbed the shock, you could say, and my back cracked, or like my sternum cracked.
Oh my God.
Well, because my sternum just likes to crack.
Okay.
I could probably do it right now. Anyway, so he kisses me, and my sternum or my back cracks, and he goes, "Ah, je t'ai fait craquer." And me, not understanding what that meant, was like, no, like, it wasn't your fault.
Oh, no.
But that's not what he meant either.
Oh,
Because when you say that in French, like, je t'ai fait craquer, that means, like, you know, I got you. You know what I mean? Like, how would you describe it?
I guess... I don't know. I guess you can say that you cracked someone, but
But it's like you kind of got to them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was saying that to be cute, and I don't even know if at the end of the day he heard my back or sternum crack, but I was like super apologetic, like, no, it wasn't you. Like, you didn't hurt me. You know what I mean? And then he just looked at me and was like, you didn't understand what I meant. I was like, oh no. Mind you, this man didn't speak a lick of English.
Oh,
so he
wow.
was one of those people who I went out on a couple dates with and would come home absolutely dead, exhausted, headaches.
You end up pooped. It's just so tiring.
Yeah. So, yeah, that one was cute. And then I told my roommates after, and they were like, that is the most adorable thing ever.
It's in keeping with quite a cute date.
Yeah.
You know?
It was fine. Like, I think we saw each other one other time after that. But... yeah, those little things, that one's not as, I would argue it's not as, like, as bad, quote unquote, as preservative condom situation, but that's one that lives with me that I was super apologetic, right? Like, oh my God, I'm sorry.
And it's just like, oh, we are on...
like, it's supposed to be like a little romantic moment, and I just completely...
Oh yeah, no, we are on very different wavelengths.
Yeah. I think another time recently, a friend of mine, I was out with a bunch of people I know from here who are all French, and instead of saying Virgo in French, I said a similar sounding word, but that means penis. So let me tell you, it happens. And no one was going to correct me except my one friend, Bastien, was like, is no one going to stop her?
Oh my God, no one would have piped up.
No, well, he did, but he was like, Sarah. And then his girlfriend was like, no, just let her keep going. And I'm like, what? Well, now you have to tell me.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's nice that they're not so distracted by it.
Yeah.
That, I mean, evidently your French is so good that people know that it's like a minor mistake in an otherwise very cohesive, understandable.
I mean, the difference in the pronunciation is so small that like the average non-French native speaker wouldn't have, I don't think, picked up on it.
Yeah.
So, but I encourage all French speakers, or really anyone who knows French better than me, or anything, anybody, please correct me in French. If I make a mistake, please correct me. You could be, technically, quote unquote, worse at French than me, but if you know something that I don't, tell me. Please tell me.
So that you're not doing the same mistake
over and over again.
I won't take it
personally. I don't, that's one thing that if I could give any piece of advice learning a language is just don't be afraid to mess up and
Yes.
take criticism like that. Obviously, constructive criticism. Take it. And even if someone doesn't say it necessarily in the nicest way, you know, like kind of is what it is, because that also happens all the time. God, the people who correct you and they look at you like they're so high and mighty and they're trying to teach you something. It's so annoying.
Yeah, infuriating.
It's so infuriating, but
You
the
just
end
take
of the
it on the
day,
chin, you move on.
yeah.
It's better to know, I suppose.
But damn, sometimes people can be so rude when they correct you.
Have you had a bad experience?
No, what I've had most is just like I'm speaking only French. I've not said a word in English, and people switch to English.
Oh no!
And I'm like, wait, how did you even know that my first language is English? Or, I mean, I guess it's like becoming this sort of universal language, but regardless, I'm like, what? People tell me I just look like I'm not French, though.
What does that mean?
I've just got the explain. But I've just got the head. The tête. Like I've just got not the French look about my features. Who knows? But no, so I haven't had like really bad experiences, but I've witnessed them with my friends. Like stupid things, like a friend ordering a beer in French, and instead of saying une bière, saying un bière, and the waiter literally going, huh? Like, what?
No.
Like, literally not, and we're like, what the? Yeah, so stuff like that really gets to me.
Yeah, because at the end of the day,
It's almost more of an effort to be like an asshole.
that's it.
Like
And
that.
I think if it's something down, correct me if I'm wrong, because again, like I'm very aware that I'm not Francophone, and in English we don't have that gendered difference in the language. But if the noun is said right, you know, I think communication is the most important thing, like we said earlier.
Yeah.
And if you get enough of the gist, I don't know, it's not what you say, it's how you say it a lot of the time.
Yes, absolutely. But nonetheless, these lost in translation things are like, you know, not to be all like, well, they're lessons.
Character building.
Character building, absolutely. Jeez, do you need to be like knocked on your ass several times for you to get something? I mean, might as well be in a safe place. You know?
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
If I was going to make an error like that, thank God it was with.
Yeah, and it's still embarrassing. I mean, the same thing with the Virgo and penis mix up.
I just want to know what you were talking about now.
Well, I was trying to say Virgo, and I said, now I don't want to mess it up. The French speakers who listen to this will laugh. I think Virgo is, do you know what Virgo is in French?
It's like,
is it?
I don't want to
You're going to accidentally say penis. Oh my gosh. Okay, so, damn it. It's either Vierge and Vierge. One of those means man, like penis, and the other one
does not.
And I don't remember, and so I'm just gonna avoid both of them.
Fair enough.
For a while. Did you figure out preservative?
It is conservateur.
Okay, that's hilarious because conservateur is also like if I was talking about someone who is politically conservative.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Same word. There you go.
Okay. All right. Well, that happens a lot in French too. New this season, Travel Like You is sponsored. Special thanks to Group Fen Expert, Southeast Florida's premium impact window and door installation specialists, protecting customers and providing the highest quality products, installation, and consulting as a family business since 2001. Thanks, guys.
I guess traveling has always been really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my family is not from the UK. I was born and raised there. And I would say I've got elements of, sounds cringe to say, like a northern identity, but Britishness I've never felt super close to. I'm Irish Filipino. Okay. And so that was the culture kind of growing up. And so I always knew of other cultures, and I always had that curiosity. And so I guess when we were younger, we didn't travel every summer. We would go to Ireland quite a lot to visit my family over there, where my dad is from. But, you know, occasionally we would go on a sunny family holiday. My family are very much of the opinion that holiday means hot.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, my first memory even was being on holiday.
Oh.
Yeah. Which it was in Greece.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I know you've got a soft spot for Greece.
I love Greece.
But yeah, I mean, it's only a flash, but, you know, walking down this little stream with my grandma and having a real aversion to the texture of sand. I just hated it between my toes.
Oh my
and
gosh.
so it was like, you know, when magnets repel, they try and put me down, my feet would go up.
That's so cute.
I've got very used to it now. I love it these days.
You can picture little baby you.
Yeah.
Like, no sand.
Not for me.
Mm-hmm.
But my mum and dad often tell me the story about, me just picking a fight with a kid in the playground, which is unlike, if you know me, I'm not one to start fights. I don't like confrontation. But I was also a massive nerd at school in just that I really like learning and tried embarrassingly hard to do well. And that was evident at 3 when there was a German kid in the playground who wanted to have this piece of apparatus to himself.
A piece of what?
Just an apparatus, you know, like I think it was like a play, maybe some swings or a roundabout. But
okay, that's an English thing that I
apparatus. You don't know?
I don't know what that means. You're on a playground.
Yeah, just like the toys
like
in the playground.
Okay.
Maybe that was even in English. I feel like, do we even say that?
See, with your accent, it's different. Like, I would say apparatus, but an apparatus for me would be like, it could be a tool or some kind of object that performs some kind of action.
Yeah, that also fits with me. So I don't know why I associate it with like playground toys. Weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was this kid in the playground.
And you were in Greece.
I was in Greece.
This is okay.
1999.
You're on vacation in Greece.
Pre-Patrick, my brother arriving.
Okay.
Last holiday as a 3. And yeah, my mum and dad they told me in recent years that, they found me arguing with a kid on this swing set.
Okay.
In the playground. And he was German, so he was shouting like 9, 9, 9 at me. But I thought he was like showing off how high he could count. So I was going 10, 10, 10 at him. And so he was like 9, 10, 9, 10. It was that my first memories are of being on holiday. And I guess since maybe 2014, when I've been 18 and old enough to travel, I've always tried to like find reasons to go away, and I love exploring cities. I was lucky enough to go interrailing last year.
Wow.
And I guess there's it's always been something that has made me curious. And I guess there's also I'm talking very much about Europe at the moment, but a big moment that was very defining was going to the Philippines for the first time, which I only did as an adult. And so that, despite being very close to my Filipino family, that whole culture trip was very interesting. So, and it was the first time being away where it was a culture that I had sort of ties to. And so it's very different when you're going into something sort of as an outsider versus going in as kind of an insider, but one that you've never been in before. It's a weird situation.
Yeah, definitely. So you had a relationship with your Filipino family. Yeah. It's your mom who's Filipino? So would they come to visit you?
It was funny. Growing up in Manchester, my Filipino family were actually the ones closest to me.
Oh, really?
My grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins on my Filipino side were the side that lived down the road.
Oh, okay.
And so that close family, I say close, there was like 20 of us, was the side that day to day I saw the most frequently.
Okay.
And the Irish side would be the side that I would see maybe once every year or every 2 years. But the Filipino country and the sort of extended family, because, if you know anything about Filipino families, they're normally quite large. I was no exception. That I had never really been immersed in.
Okay.
And occasionally we would have family come to visit that were they would be relations my mum had grown up with. But they weren't ones that I was particularly close to. And so, yeah, it was weird, wonderful and weird to have that connection to a part of the world that is logistically so far away. But yeah, I was 22 when I went there for the first time.
And what was it like? Because you were visiting your extended family, or you were visiting just the Philippines?
I was visiting family because we had a wedding.
Oh.
Yeah, it was my cousin's wedding and he was getting married out there. So remarkably, I managed to go out there with my mum and my brother and my dad. And so that was the first time the four of us had been out there. But it was also my cousins who all went out there as well. And my aunt and uncle and my grandma and granddad. We were a troop of maybe 15, I want to say.
Whoa, big family trip.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And my grandma was ill at that time. Travel wasn't necessarily easy to do. She was on dialysis, but we managed to make that work.
Wow.
And she's not here anymore, so it was a once in a lifetime trip. And even back then I had a sense of that being the case.
Yeah.
So that was phenomenally special to me, but it was weird at the same time.
Yeah. Why weird?
Because the way I describe it is that it was everything and nothing like I expected it to be.
Okay.
The Philippines was almost this mythical Disneyland-like place when I was growing up that, we'll go. It's really hard to organize logistics to go. The best time of year to visit is when it's not summer in Europe. And, it's really, the storms are quite bad. And so when you've got kids in schools, it's hard to find the time to get everyone out there to go. It's expensive. So it was always like we'll do it one day.
Okay.
Kind of idea. And then life gets in the way, you grow up, and it's hard to carve out time. And so I had built what I realized was a very concrete idea of what this place would be like based on the things that I had seen close to me in Manchester. What the surface level things like what's the food going to be like, or what's the temperature, or what's how do you get around? And I guess being there and being immersed in it, some things completely solidified and some things completely shattered.
Yeah.
So, that could be really, really, again, surface level things like this heralded fast food place, Jollibee, that everyone adores. And it's like so much better than McDonald's. And I went so excitedly, and I really disliked it.
Oh, no.
And I was like, no, I'm a bad Filipino. Damn it.
I love that you said really disliked. You didn't hate it?
No, it's not offensively bad, but I feel like it's offensive for me to say that as a Filipino. Please don't disown me.
Cancelled.
This is the end.
I'm curious also, like, what was the food?
Oh, it's fine. Like it's
you don't have to. It's nothing. If you don't want to really be canceled.
I don't want. Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fried chicken, and I don't know what it is. It's very Jollibee is this heralded, wonderful Filipino fast food restaurant. It's an institution. My mum grew up going there, on special occasions, not on special occasions, but if she wanted like a treat day.
Okay.
It's kind of, McDonald's exists there too, but to Filipinos, Jollibee is just infinitely better. So when you go in with expectations up here, you expect it to be the best fried chicken, like Colonel Sanders. You can get lost. You got nothing on Jollibee, and it was fine.
No.
It was okay.
Yeah.
And I just had a bad batch a few times. I don't know.
A few times. Oh no, you gave it a second chance.
I gave it so many chances and I just couldn't click with it. I just didn't get the hype and that felt very sad. I don't think I've ever voiced this out loud.
Oh no.
Sorry, Mum. No, to be fair, to their credit, one thing that I love seeing like how menus change depending on where you are in the world. And one thing that I will say for Jollibee, so I am still Filipino. Peach and mango pie,
delicious.
Heavenly. That is
if I ever go to the Philippines, I'll have to try it, obviously. Yeah. If it's part of, I don't know, I guess it's like going to the States, and even if you do have McDonald's, like where you live because it's everywhere. It's like going to the States and not trying a quintessential, even if it's fast food, like that makes sense. So I would try it. I do love fried chicken also.
Yeah, you do have a penchant for that.
I do.
You might like it. You might be more Filipino than I am.
Stop.
You never know.
That's too funny. Oh yeah, it's true because we talked about that on the podcast. Actually, my love for chicken and how I've managed to find it in France.
I like that episode.
Lucy and I think, right?
Yeah.
Chicken Street. Oh,
of course.
So good. What were some of the other things that you maybe thought you expected and to be a certain way in the Philippines that in the end were different?
Yeah, I think there was a moment, I guess. Was when I was in Manila, which is not the most exciting place to visit, I would say. It's an essential part of the Philippines, but I don't think it's representative of what the Philippines is.
Okay.
But we were there because it was near the wedding, but it was definitely seeing the contrast between means and how places and people with extremely wealthy means could be just next to parts that were essentially complete poverty. And having not seen that with my own eyes, like that, but also having this association that, okay, this country, to an extent, I associate with home, was a really bizarre thing to come to terms with, because it's not like, visiting somewhere. And I don't want to sound insensitive in saying this, but when you see something that is really, really hard, but you're objective or you're not part of the culture, you can kind of see it with a little bit more, I don't want to say distance, but the perspective is different than when it's a place that you have grown up calling in some way home, even if you've never been there. And so to see that, to be confronted with that, and seeing such a stark difference, and the difficulties that come with that was, quite stifling. I was really moved and upset by it. But there were wonderful things as well that completely blew me away. The kindness of the people and the chaos, and how actually I thought that would be something that I'd really find frustrating. Okay, traffic I hated. But there were so many other things that I just was really charmed by that I didn't expect. So I guess it really taught me you just can't, even if it's something that you think you don't.
Right. Is there anything that you think if someone's visiting the Philippines, like definitely something not to go in there thinking, or something to do or not to do, that, because at the end of the day, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this podcast who maybe have never thought about going there or don't know anything about it. And it's definitely something that area of the world is somewhere that I really want to go. But I wouldn't even know where to start with the Philippines.
Oh, it's so worth a visit. It is such a welcoming, beautiful place with the kindest people. I was talking to my mum recently, actually, about the language. One of the accessible and cool things about visiting the Philippines is the prominence. I think it's kind of selfish, but English is really, really widely spoken there.
Okay.
It's also got a lot of ties with Spanish culture because, it is a former colony of Spain long, long ago. And so depending on where you go, sometimes that Spanish could be a help. But certainly English is everywhere. But I have to start with the people because that's my closest tie to it. You will never find a kinder, more generous, open-hearted group of people. They wear their hearts on their sleeves and are passionate and family people oriented. And so I can't vouch enough for the hospitality that you would get if you're there. In terms of getting around, it's an archipelago, so it's actually 7,000 islands.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
7,000.
7,000 islands.
Okay, yeah, it's not just, France.
So you can't interrail around it, or intrarail. No. There's a lot of planes. There's a lot of boats. but that means that there is so much diversity. Every island, every region has its own charm. It has maybe its own dialect. It has its own communities and norms, and its own natural riches as well. You know, the landscape totally changes, and so you just get such a wide spectrum of possibilities when you're there. And the final thing to say about the Philippines that's very important: big singers. You got to be ready to whip out the karaoke.
I've heard of this. I've heard of a karaoke culture over there. That's
they don't mess around.
That is so funny.
Do not mess around. Family parties growing up, get the karaoke out.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I love that. And for some reason, we did theater. I mean, for God's sakes, I used to be on TV. Karaoke, I'm shy as hell.
No.
I mean, I used to sing. I used to dance. I still do some of these things sometimes, but in front of people, in front of strangers, I find karaoke super embarrassing. And you know why? I think it's because I am always disappointed in the audience. If someone has the courage to go and sing in front of you, like, you support them. You better be a good audience member.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, look at them and clap and sing along, like, help them with the song, right?
Yeah.
If you don't do that, karaoke is infinitely more embarrassing. It's so uncomfortable. And so I don't like being put in that. Can you tell I've been in that position before where I'm singing a song?
From experience.
Yeah. Like, I'm singing a song and no one else is like participating. This is supposed to be for everybody.
It's like drawing blood from a stone. Like, please interact with me.
Yeah, and so I've done that enough times to say that I'm not gonna be the one to, like, suggest karaoke. Okay. But of course I would do it somewhere like that.
Absolutely.
Because I think the risk of embarrassment also goes down a lot because, I mean, I don't know. I'm just traveling. Like, I don't know anybody over there.
You got nothing to lose. It's
right.
the done thing. Why not?
Exactly. And that's sort of it's probably my, not mantra, but I definitely maybe live life a little bit more on the edge when I'm traveling, because there's a lot less, like, I'm going to leave and I'm never going to see anybody again. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's important to obviously curb that appropriately.
Yeah.
I think this is why I was going to ask about tourism over there, because it's like, depending on where you go in the world, I feel like some people think they can just show up in another country and, like, take advantage of some of the kindness. Yeah. You know what I mean? That you're talking about. And I would hate to think that that's a problem over there, but I think about it. I think I saw something recently on Instagram or something just talking about how, like, if you're going to a country that maybe has a culture of, like, having these markets where you go and you're sort of expected to bargain or whatever, like, don't insult the local people by, like, bargaining super low. You know, like, you're already on vacation there. We kind of had this discussion on another episode, but it's like, it's part of the game to bargain. So you can do it, but, like, don't insult them by, you know, they're asking you for, I don't know, 60 and you're like 10. Like,
don't take
probably
the piss.
not. Probably not the.
Not gonna make many friends like that.
No, and you know, so I just wonder if there's. I mean, it's important to sort of recognize that as well when you go somewhere. I feel like
it's been interesting, actually, in the last couple of years, following the rise, as it were, of the Philippines as this Southeast Asian holiday destination. Okay. When I was growing up, no one would talk about going on holiday to the Philippines except my family. Mm-hmm. But you'd hear of people going away to Thailand or to Indonesia. And I was always a bit curious as to why. Mm-hmm. No one was talking about the Philippines when it was in the same neck of the woods. And slowly but surely, in recent years, maybe the infrastructure has been more accommodating of big international tourism in the Philippines. Mm-hmm. Maybe in terms of globalization, it's become a more tangible place. Yeah. But, like, it's weird. In the last, like, 4 years, I would say it's like arrived as, like, a tourist destination. Yeah. Have you heard of the Philippines? These 7,000 islands. I'm like, oh yeah, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah.
And it's just been really, interesting to watch people discover it. I love it because, people are just being able to get to know this culture that I grew up with in my own way in the UK, that I'm tied to by blood, But yeah, I know that in seeing it become increasingly popular, it makes me wonder, what is the reality of that on the ground? I'm encouraged by things like some of the islands that have closed due to over tourism.
Okay.
In order to sort of protect the island and try and let it renew. So the fact that those kind of procedures have been in place in islands like Boracay, which is like the most beautiful beaches in the center of the Philippines, that's encouraging that they're maybe laying down the groundwork to accommodate it. But, at the same time.
Yeah, you never know. You hear so much about beautiful places being, I was going to say, I don't like saying it this way, but it's the way people say it, like being rediscovered or just being like discovered, because that's
the discovery of the Philippines has been
as if it didn't already exist. But of certain places as new tourist destinations, and then just being overrun.
Totally.
So I would want to, like, me personally would want to be just a good tourist. I mean, as to whatever extent you can be. Depending on where you go. This is part of, like, sort of how I think the best way to choose a destination is to also consider what your impact as a tourist is going to be.
Yeah, what kind of tourist are you planning to be? Because you have to think about it conscientiously, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there are some people who like to say, I'm not a tourist, I'm a traveler. And it's like, well, no. I mean, I like to say that too, but, like, not as a contradiction, you know what I mean? I'm both. I mean, it just, frankly, the end result is the same. Yeah. So, do your best to go somewhere and respect that place. I mean, you've been hearing about everything like Barcelona, like Spain.
Yeah.
The way that, I mean, they are really super against tourists right now. I get it. I mean, I've spoken to Spanish people who are like, oh my God, yeah. Like the tourism industry has actually taken over as sort of like the local government's priority, and so there's funds being allocated in places that are meant for people who are just visiting instead of the actual inhabitants, and things like that.
Yeah, that's a massively that's a massive issue that's becoming more and more prominent. It made me think of something then, what you said about you can go into a place and you can give yourself the title of traveler instead of a tourist, but you can't ever go anywhere in isolation. You don't go in a bubble. You still interact with people. Everything that you do, every purchase you make, every trip that you book implicates people. And you might call yourself one thing, but to all these people who actually live there,
you're just a tourist.
What title are they giving you? And you kind of have to think of it that way too. You can't just do things in a little bubble.
Yeah. And that's not even mentioning, I mean, I mentioned Spain, but all the other places that have long time been overrun by tourism, and the local government has had to prioritize tourism because it is a source of income. But all of that said, like, again, who are you going to be when you go somewhere? And I would just, encourage anybody to consider that, not to dissuade you from going, but just to consider, like, okay, if I'm going and I'm going to contribute to the tourist economy of this place, wherever it is, how am I going to do that?
Yeah.
And is it going to be respectful?
Yeah. What kind of person are they going to experience with me being there?
Yeah. You have this multicultural sort of background. You're used to this idea of feeling like both inside and outside.
Yeah.
How does it feel living in France 4.5 years? Do you feel like, you belong?
It's a good question. I guess, I think I do. It's funny. I think it's a conversation that I've shared with you. It's a conversation I've shared with a lot of people in our position, that you kind of Hannah Montana your life. You've got two concurrent versions of yourself that exist. There's the you that is in France, in my case. And then there's the me that is in Manchester and is close to my friends and my family. And during the pandemic, that I felt more like, I don't want to say more of the same person, but because you could just travel so much less, it was so much more of a momentous shift of location when you got to go between them. But ever since then, that was 3 years ago, I've been very, very lucky to have been able to pop back and forth a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny to kind of have two spinning plates.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really, really do feel like I've laid roots here in Bordeaux. I adore it. I never thought that I could make somewhere feel so homey, where I didn't have a previous context, that I could arrive somewhere and feel so, it feels so right.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, in order for that to feel as right as it does, that's with the condition of the other part in Manchester also ticking away too, and the ability and the possibility to keep in touch with that and go back to it. So feeling full here doesn't mean being 100% here.
Mm-hmm.
The maths isn't mathsing, I'm aware of that. It's a weird thing. It's this dichotomy, two things existing at the same time, but it's a contradiction that you're happy to kind of make peace with and accept as being imperfect, because it affords you the life that you end up living. And God, I wouldn't swap that for the world.
Right, because at the end of the day, Miley and Hannah could not be both in the same room at the same time.
Exactly. What? Spoiler alert.
I know, but that's it.
Yeah,
this idea
right.
of you can only be in one place at a time.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean. This idea that you can feel full while also missing this other place and wanting to be part of it, and and coming back to this place that makes you feel full, but missing your family and that piece of you, and knowing that you're missing birthdays or holidays and things like that otherwise maybe you would have been there to celebrate, but maybe not. I mean, there's like these sacrifices you have to make you're happy, and at the end of the day, it's your life, and you've found a place that makes you happy, and you want to go there. Do you know how many times my nephews asked me why I live so far away? This time I was home? Oh my God.
That's hard.
My nephews and my niece, oh my gosh. They were asking me, like, where's your home? Can we go? I'm like, you got to take the plane. They're like, why? I'm like, oh, Luke loves it. Why? He's 3.
That's his word of the...
and I'm like, well, because I like living over there. Oh, and Mila too.
Mila's a lovely
6.
name.
Thank you. She's my mini me.
No.
Red curly hair. And like even my brother and my dad both call her Sarah all the time. But she is like spitting image of me, and personality wise too. She was really not like hard on me, but she got, kids, they'll get to you. They know how to hit you right where it hurts.
Oh yeah.
And she was like, why do you live so far away? Like, why don't you just move back here? Like, we're here. And I'm like, oh my God, like I love you, and that's why I come home to visit. I got that from my dad, like, because that's the best way to put it. Like, I love you, and I come home to visit because I love you, but my life is over here. I'm building a life here. I'm putting down roots, like you said, and so it's so hard. And I know I told myself this. I think a little over a year ago, at least. I was like, I think I came home from visiting. I came home. When I said home, I meant here in France.
Wow, that's
now for the record. When I came back here from visiting my home in Florida and Canada, I was like, I was homesick, but I was like, but I'm happy here. And so I think that's what really got me going. And I was like, I have to visit home at least twice a year.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what it costs, obviously things can change, but that's going to be my goal for as long as I live over here. I gotta go twice a year. That's
the compromise.
Right.
And I wouldn't have been able to make my peace with this had it not been for a really, really valuable conversation with a friend that I don't stay in touch with anymore from uni, who had moved out to Berlin. Just had so much worldly life experience for someone who was only maybe a year or two older than me. And she was kind enough to have a little call with me before I moved out, when I was like, oh, am I doing a really stupid thing? And yeah, she was just encouraging me to take that leap of faith, and that when those moments of conflict happen internally, when you're weighing up options and one doesn't seem better than the other, or you could do this, but that also exists, there's no point trying to settle that uncertainty with logic. And so you just have to accept it. I want to be here and I want to be there, and that's the way it is. And the way that you ease that day to day is knowing that you're going to have those 2 trips a year when you really, really take that time, quality time with your family, and make up for any time that you've lost if you feel that way.
Right. I mean, they say, right, life is about choices, and you gain things from choices and you lose things simultaneously from choices. There's so many things that, you never know you'll ever have missed out on, never any connections you could have made. There are, there's so many things that you don't know you're missing, which again, ignorance is bliss, but it's harder when you do know what you're missing, obviously. Yeah. And so those choices can be a lot more difficult to make. But, my dad moved us all from Canada to Florida. Yeah. Our family was all, maybe we had some other family in Florida. I'm not exactly sure, but, they were all like, what? Why are you moving to Florida? Oh, wow. Right? My dad, my mom, and 4 kids. So maybe that's where I got it from.
I think that's a help. When you've got it in your blood, it kind of helps. My dad did the same. My dad moved to the UK when he was 24, and he was the only one of his 8 siblings to lay his roots outside of Ireland in the end. And knowing that he had to do that for himself, and that he did settle in a different country, it's Ireland compared to England, but when you're from a small town, that means a lot.
Right. They're not too far from each other, which is good. But yeah, from a small town, I can only imagine.
Yeah, it was a big thing. And, my grandparents moving across the world.
All right, the Philippines.
Yeah. It's funny because my family have always been so homey, and in many ways I'm such a home bird. It feels like the opposite thing that people might have expected me to do. But it's also, the signs were always there.
But it's definitely a contradiction. You can be 2 things at once. You can be homesick and really happy where you are.
Yeah, that's it.
So, crazy. Look at us. Who would have thought?
Look at us. Not me.
I love that. Not me. All right, so speaking of who would have thought, are you gonna give us that context? Because part of me is like, I don't. So you were on vacation. Can you remind us what the story is before you decide to give context or not? Remind us what the no context story was.
Okay, so as a reminder, my no context story is that one time on holiday, my family firmly believed my dad might have just contracted rabies from Che Guevara.
Okay. So you were on vacation. Well, I can't ask questions. Okay. Do you want to give the context? You can leave it there. Oh, that's a hard one for me because I was about to ask you so many questions. Wow. I think that's the first time that I almost couldn't hold back. I was going to force you. I'm sorry.
You have to give me context. No, if you don't want to know, we can stop the podcast here. You can check out now. But I do kind of feel like
it deserves
it warrants a bit of context.
Yay.
So I'm going to take you back to August 2016. Family holiday. We're in Cuba. It's 2016. We're on the streets of Havana. It's day 1. The sun is shining. It's beautiful. There's music from every corner of the city. It's one of the most incredible cities I've ever been to, and my family and I are gallivanting around town. We come to this beautiful square, and we come across a man with a dog just dressed as Che Guevara.
Okay.
So yeah, the Che Guevara in this story is a sausage dog.
Oh.
He's in full uniform, and this man is trying to coax people over to have a photo with Che Guevara, the sausage dog.
Oh my God.
And my family and I were sold. We go over. We start making conversations with the man. He's very charmed by us. My dad's a very charming Irish man. And so they get chatting. He asks where we're from. We say we're from the UK. And at this point, the man gets quite excited. He goes, oh, watch this, watch this. And says to the dog, Che, what do we think of David Cameron? This poor dog had been trained to obviously respond to bad things with aggression, you know? And as a joke, maybe, he thought it'd be funny to train this dog to really, really dislike the name David Cameron. And this dog really hates the name David Cameron because it starts barking and getting really aggressive and ends up biting my dad.
Oh no.
And not like a little nip, like a proper like jaw locked, will not let go, blood trickling down the arm. Whoa. It gets quite bloody quite quickly. And we are in full panic mode because at this point we're like, we didn't think about getting shots before going to Cuba.
No. Especially not rabies. I mean,
yeah, we're like, maybe Cuba doesn't have rabies. Maybe we're okay.
Right.
But in any case, we need to get my dad to hospital. This is a very, very bad bite.
I mean.
And so we go back to the hospital and we're like, just to make sure, like, rabies isn't an issue here, is it? And they were like, sometimes. And at that point, we shit a brick.
Yeah.
And so we end up driving in one of these old cars down the motorway to the nearest hospital. We're all in tears. It's day one. It's already, ended up in pandemonium.
Day one.
Anyway, my dad goes into hospital and is seen very quickly because the Cuban health service is incredible.
Yeah, I've heard it's absolutely impeccable over there.
Impeccable is the word.
The best doctors in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've heard they have cures for things that we don't in the US. Like
it's wild.
Yeah,
they really looked after
us. Kudos to the Cuban health system.
That was good, actually. So my dad gets seen, and thankfully he does not end up with rabies. We're all good. Ooh. So he comes out. He's got iodine on his hand. All is good. And so we're like, what happened? What went on? Did you have to have it stitched up? And he's like, it's okay. It's okay. What went on in the emergency room? And my dad goes, well, he asked me to recount what happened. And so I got as far as telling him about the square and about the dog. And the doctor stops me and goes, what does the dog look like?
Oh, no.
And my dad goes, it was a brown sausage dog. And the doctor goes, oh, just like Che Guevara.
No.
But I was like, what the hell? What's going on?
Oh, my God.
And the doctor's like, yeah, no, don't worry. I know that dog. It's all good.
Oh my goodness.
That's like, what do you mean you know that dog? And he was like, well, that dog is actually a famous dog. That dog is the Cuban national football team's mascot. So because he's a professional dog, he's had to have all these shots. He's absolutely fine. You've got nothing to worry about. He's a friend of a friend. You'll be absolutely fine, but I'll check up on you anyway.
Oh.
And my dad's like, sorry, backtrack. You know the dog?
Oh my God.
And so there's dogs that kind of work the circuit, of which he was one of them.
Oh my goodness. That is the funniest thing. A sausage dog famously dressed as Che Guevara.
Also the mascot of the national Cuban football team.
A celebrity. Your dad should be so lucky.
Yeah.
to have been graced with his bite.
By his canines,
Oh my God.
It was just the weirdest story.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. And traveling with your family, your poor dad. Does he have a scar?
I think he does, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he hasn't been able to look at sausage dogs in the same way.
They're all Che Guevara to him.
Yeah.
Goodness, that's hilarious. Oh, what a good context to no context. I was like, I thought Che Guevara was dead. I was sitting here like, did I miss something? Like, I thought I knew a decent amount.
I'm older than I look.
Cuban history. Goodness, that's so funny. Oh my gosh.
So it's a bit of a clickbaity title, but I hope the payoff was okay.
That's what they're for. Awesome. And before we wrap up, do you have any trips planned?
Ooh, well, in talking about feeling pulls to home, I don't have a Filipino trip planned yet.
Too mad.
But what I do really feel a yearning for is to go back to Ireland, actually, and visit my family over there. It would be really nice to go and to see my dad's many siblings,
Aw.
and to take my partner out there as well. 'Cause
So
he's never
Irish. And to have many siblings.
Of course, yeah. It's just a Catholic thing.
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
I'm Catholic. I mean,
But to be honest there, I don't bank on getting much sun. I would be stunned.
yeah.
So I don't know. I would one of the places that's really been on my travel list for a long time is like the south of Italy, like around like Bari, and knowing that that's kind of connected to Albania, that part of the Mediterranean just looks stunning.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to visit.
Yeah.
So I would say if I could,
Awesome. Well, thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
This was such a
Sarah.
pleasure.
It's been
You
so
really
much
got me with
fun.
your no context.
Oh, I'm glad. I wanted to do it justice. It's one of my favorite parts of your podcast.
Oh, thanks. You're hyping me up. Well, speaking of that, actually, for anyone who would like to follow the podcast, I have to do a little plug for the Instagram and TikTok, if that still exists at the time of this listening.
Region dependent.
Yeah, we'll see. Basically, if you haven't already, please follow travellikeyou.pod on Instagram and TikTok. And there you can find some more travel inspo and fun behind the scenes stuff and share your comments and questions. And if you want to be featured, send me a message there or at travellikeyupod@gmail.com. Emma did not have to submit any sort of request. She was requested by me.
I feel very honored.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe on whatever listening app you're using. Give me 5 stars if that's how that works. And check out the episode description for any places that we mentioned. All right, that's about it. Good night.